안녕하십니까?
Hello, everyone.
네, 저는 오늘 이 디스커션의 행사를 진행.
I will be the moderator for this discussion. I am Shin Hyung-duk. I'm a professor. It's a pleasure to meet you.
우리는 그 작은 토론을 통해서
So today we're going to have a discussion on the topic of the online culture and economic models in the pandemic. So we really have to explore the kind of economic models that we can implement in the times of COVID-19 pandemic. So I hope that we will have very meaningful and useful discussions, and I hope that our audience will also find it instructive.
그럼 먼저 우리가 이 자리에서 모여 있는
So before we start, I would like to introduce to you the panelists for our discussion. So maybe our discussants or panelists can briefly introduce themselves. So I would like to call on the names by the screens I see in order. So first of all, Chloe, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm very happy to be with you today. I am based in Paris, and my company called Lucid Realities. We are a production company. We are focused on immersive content, virtual reality, augmented reality, or immersive exhibition content. And we also have a distribution activity. And so our main concern is to produce cultural and immersive content and to distribute them around the world through museum, cultural venues, or online platforms.
네, 감사합니다. 네.
Thank you.
네. 그러면 제가 이제 보는 또 두 번째로 보이는
Then our second speaker, please introduce yourself, Ms. Han.
안녕하세요. 저는 함성민이라고 합니다.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ham Sung-min. I work at Naver, a Korean portal site, and I'm in charge of performing arts there. We're not a content maker, but we deal with diverse performing art companies and museums and art institutions who are making performing arts. And we strive to seek solutions how to show and display performing arts online. And with the advent of COVID-19 last year, we were very much concerned about how to display performing arts and art productions through online. And in cooperation with performing arts industries and art industries, we are providing services. Thank you very much. And then
Next, Lutz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Lutz Leixenring. I'm based in Berlin, in Germany. My background is advocacy in nighttime. I'm the spokesperson of an organization that's called Club Commission, and we are representing clubs and like music clubs and promoters of Berlin. And I'm also founder of a consultancy that is called Vibe Lab, and we're doing research and consultancy in nighttime all over the world. We conducted several studies about creative industry, about creative communities at the night. And last year, during the pandemic, I started a project with our community here in Berlin, which is called United We Stream. And we created a platform for club culture online. It's basically the biggest club in the world. We had more than 2,500 artists on stage. We are now in 120 cities all over the world, and we generated almost 2 million euros in donations.
네, 잘 알겠습니다. 네. 먼저 하나 양해를 구하고 싶은
Thank
것이
you. Well noted. Would like to make a short housekeeping announcement. I have to make an apology here. My background is a little different from yours. Yes, I was told to put the background in the same way as panelists, but I am sorry, and I'm not proud of my background here. Apology. There was a slight technical glitch. Let me introduce myself. I am Professor Hyung Dak-shin of Hongik University in Korea, and I belong to a department called Culture and Arts Management. I am the dean of the department, and my major is economics and business management. And I am very much interested in arts and culture and their management. Well, we're truly global today with panelists from Paris, Berlin, and Seoul. And we live a really globalized world. And I am very happy to hear different opinions from panelists. I would like to talk about our common interest with Lutz first. As I've just heard, you are doing the advocacy activities for nights, right? And you are deploying lots of activities with 2,500 artists altogether to do business. And that makes me think of two different ideas. Well, we're living in a COVID-19 era, and the online becomes part of our lives. And BiPlab, do you think it's facing a crisis, or do you see it as an opportunity for BiPlab?
I think it has. Every crisis has also opportunities, of course. We maybe we talk about the positive sides a bit, because we all know the negative side of a pandemic. It really helped to accelerate certain ideas. It helped that people were more listening to you. They saw there's a crisis. We need to come together. We need to collaborate. And this really, of course, accelerated in this crisis. We also learned that models that have been there, but nobody were using it, such as streaming, can really be very valuable, because they give access to people, to festivals, to music that maybe don't have access because they cannot travel, or they cannot enter a venue because they have to stay home for a certain reason. And I think we are still in a transition phase. On one side, we haven't learned yet how to monetize streamings in a proper way, to pay artists. It's actually, at the moment, it is for a lot of pioneer technologies. It is an early stage, and we are still figuring out where people are willing to pay for. But we also know that we have to educate people who are listening to streams or watching streams, because if you're sitting on your working desk and watching a music video, it is probably not the same feeling that you would have, of course, when you're on a dance floor or at a concert live. But you can also make it much better at home. So where you sit, your speakers, to visualize, I think there can be a lot of more improvement than it is at the moment. And of course, it's not a nice feeling to sit at your working desk in front of a small monitor and listening to music from, the computer speakers. So for us, I think there's a lot of conversation going on globally. We're working on a global nighttime recovery plan with more than 60 cities. We're showcasing ideas. I would not say they're all best practices, because a lot of ideas that come up are practices. They're not being, they're not being seen if they're the best cases yet. But we see that things are moving. People are having a dialogue, and we can also see that technology, such as streaming services, help to unite a scene, because you give them a digital platform and everybody is visible. And even if they had concerns or fights or were not or conflicts, virtually it's easier to bring them together, unite them, and show solidarity to each other. And that's what we try to do in the last months.
와, 나이트 클럽을
Well, thank you. Yes, it's not easy and it's very unique to convey an ambience of nightclub through online. It's virtual, isn't it? Because there's a certain fever or vibes we can feel on spot. But hearing your stories with new technologies, I think we can explore new opportunities. And Chloe,
Yes, so Chloe, you mentioned about, creating VR, AR contents. So I think that you're also focused on visual arts and exhibitions. But what do you think? Do you think that AR and VR will be enough to present that kind of a feel that you're on-site presence?
So for the moment, it's not so easy to show online cultural content in virtual reality. First, because the people who have a virtual reality headset are more gamers than really cultural founders. So what we can see is that it's coming more and more, and the 5G platform should give wider access to cultural content in virtual reality through your mobile phone, for example. But what we have seen the last month is that quite a lot of museums produce more and more content and put them online, and the websites of the museum reaches very, very high audiences because of the closing of the museum, of course. And what happened in our company is that we had some exhibition in VR planned last year, and that were of course postponed because of the closing of the museum. But we had also new content coming this year, and we saw our activity half divided in virtual reality content that will be present in museum after summer, with more and more museum hoping to open again, and who want to really reach as many people as they have. And new kind of content also arrived, like augmented realities app. And we are working, for example, on an app in augmented reality for kids about The Little Dancer by Edgar Degas. That is a small sculpture, not so small, quite a beautiful sculpture representing a little dancer, and that is showcased at the Musée d'Orsay. And we co-produce with the Musée d'Orsay in Paris an augmented reality app where the little dancer is dancing in real in your home, and you can make it happier in your home. And she tells you a story, and that's a new way where the museum can bring their artworks outside of the museum and come in your house. So that kind of content, I guess it can work, of course, very well. And we will launch this project in few months. And what is also arriving more and more in Europe is a large-scale immersive exhibition with big projections, like the Atelier des Lumières in Paris. And I think there is also an Atelier des Lumières in Korea that opened last year. And this kind of digital museum or digital exhibition will open all over the world more and more, and you can adjust the audiences and don't have too many people in the room, because the space are very, very big, and it's maybe less difficult than a headset, where you need to share your headset with other people, and so that can be a new kind of content that will arrive in the following months.
보니까 굉장히 흥미로운
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of interesting activities are taking place in your region, and Lutz mentioned about, the sense of vibe and energy that you can feel on site in nightclubs, but also, there are different attempts being made to deliver, showcase virtual exhibitions and to have that actual feel on site.
수 있을 것 같아요. 지금
And Ms. Ham, Naver must have something to show in a different way, different from the vibes from the nightclubs and museums. What is your consent and what is your interest? Starting from the last year, when the pandemic has come, well, we had 4 cameras and 4 others in the other corner, and a total of 10 cameras have filmed a performance, and it was uploaded online. But artists are having had difficulties during the COVID-19 period, but those kind of free of charge art contents online were criticized in some senses. So since last year, we have been providing some live concerts or live contents in a paid way. So it was last September that we started developing a platform for that. And many performing arts companies showed their interest, and we are in cooperation with them. And by carrying out those attempts, well, actually in performing art industry, artists do not have any clauses for online contracting. So we needed to have a standardized clauses for those artists who do not have conditions for online distribution of their art contents. And we use at least 4 to maximum 10 cameras for one stage. Then profitability versus cost becomes another factor that we need to consider. And there are some musicals or theaters featuring pop celebrities or popular actors and actresses. They make profit, so we need to make enlarge that kind of market first. And well, when compared online versus offline, well, our users, audiences preferred performances online when we do the zooming images of actors or some backgrounds of the stage. And we also used to run a live chatting room with directors or producers of those contents, and they respond to questions of users, audiences, in a real-time basis. So very naturally, that chatting room has become a dialogue occasion, and it was quite loved by the audience, in particular the audience living in rural areas or in faraway regions who were not given a chance to come to Seoul every time to see that kind of performances, and that they showed lots of appreciation to us in that sense. Of course, performing arts should be based on offline, but when they are moved to online, there was an absolute advantage of online. And we have multicam. When there are several artists, you may want to see a particular artist only amongst others. So we used multicam feature so that we can shed highlight on each artist for the audience. And we can also have a different packages of products by editing different images of online performance arts that we had. Yes, thank you. Well, online streaming and providing payable online streaming contents leads us to the core agenda of today's discussion. Yes, it is true, as Ms. Ham has just mentioned. Up until now, videos have been distributed free of charge, but we are now in a transitioning period to turn those free of charge contents into paid ones. Like we have artists BTS and other singers from SM Entertainment Company, and they charge around $30 to $50 for their performance for their shows. One show, I mean, and they started to materialize their performing art contents into financial profits. Well, then let me ask another question, Ms. Ham. You have just mentioned about multicam. I am not a theater expert, but when it comes to expressions or facial expressions of actors or some acts or behaviors of those actors, well, other than, do you think that we can generalize that kind of multicam usage? And if not, what will be the roadblock to that? Well, there's a certain difference between pop market, I mean pop song market and theater markets, like concert markets featuring BTS and K-pop idols. Their online market is expanding very wide these days, not only in Korea but globally. So in that sense, multicam is very effective when there's a certain fandom. Let's say that out of several idol members, fans do want to see a certain member of that idol group. And in that case, the multicam will follow a certain idol member out of all group singers. But I think that this kind of multicam usage can be applied to theater or musical performances as well. Well, on site, if I have a chance to be seated on a front row in a real theater space, yes, I can feel the vibe or I can feel the energy of the actors on the stage. But if I am seated in the corner, in the back corner of the stage, then I wouldn't be able to feel the energy as much as I would feel from the front row. But on online, we can use a multicam so that we can convey the energy of the actors. But sometimes there were concerns that that kind of multicam usage may turn those performance arts into a drama like you can watch on TV. But we started from musicals and theaters because there's a stage and it's totally different from drama, TV drama, I mean. So online audiences can be benefited in some senses from those online performances in that sense. Well, thank you. Then let me ask the next question to Lutz.
Yes, about the performance. So what Ms. Ham said that you really have to be a hardcore fan, and like you want to really see the fan that the celebrity that you like, and we can use technologies for that. But your area is about nightlife and nightclub. Will this kind of thing apply to what you're doing? So what are some challenges in monetizing what you are doing, the activities that you're doing?
So first of all, when we talk about club culture, we always talk about three dimensions. We talk about a cultural dimension, a social, and a monetary dimension. So it is also, there are ways to make to create art and to provide obviously content that is very valuable. But the question is, if there's is there also a social connection to it? And is there a monetary connection? Is there a way of making money with it? So I think we always have to look in these 3 dimensions when we talk about club culture. And obviously, at the moment, at this very moment, we cannot cover all 3. At the moment, we can only present art in a certain way. And it's not very social. It's not very interactive. I mean, Ms. Ham already said there are ways of offering dialogues with artists. Maybe also have give like little documentaries that describe. But it's also very costly. And we also have to make sure that what we produce is also relevant, it also needs to be relevant and also in a balance on where you spend your money, because the artist it needs also to be paid, and cameras and technology and the people behind the stream, it is costly, and at this moment we don't have income streams for it other than donations. But we can also see that different platforms, social media platforms, want different contents. So when we look into Facebook, for instance, usually the user gets, let's say, a taste of a stream, but not staying there for a long time. There's too much other things going on, and after a couple minutes, this person is already somewhere else. If you go to Twitch, people expect that you have an interaction. They want that the artist is speaking to you. They want that there's that you have a close relationship to that person on the screen, and that you have, as a fan, the ability to interact. And then you have YouTube as, let's say, just to stream and maybe to comment in the comment section. But we also had all the time in our streams, we had about 2 or 3 people continuously interacting with the audience in the chat and making sure that, let's say, meet the people at the virtual bar. That's what we call it. You have your virtual bar in the chats, and try to interact with them. But it is really, I feel a bit like in the early days of the internet, or the early days of video conferencing. It has its challenges, and I think we just have to grow a bit and to learn more what people also are willing to pay for. And then, of course, we have to offer substantial possibilities. Like also in the early days of music streaming, people downloaded for free because there was no legal way. And we also have to think about models. Maybe there needs to be a platform coming up with a financial model that is helping us. Tokens, of course, and NFTs is something that we also talk about. But at this moment we are still in a way where we're experimenting, and the only ones who can monetize are the big players, are the big festivals, the big artists. Because they're the first movers and they have a big audience, and then people are also willing to go with this experiment.
네, 맞아요. 거기에 우리의 고민이 있는 것 같습니다. 아직까지는.
Yes, you're right. That's where our concerns exist. Big players make money now, but as for other people, it is really tough to make a cash cow stream for them. In that sense, Chloe, you must have lots of concerns. Well, visual arts is another story from performing arts industry. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that in Europe and in France, that for sure, the museums field is, of course, well supported by public funds and public support. So the story is quite different for us because, of course, in France and in Europe, the government and the public institution supported a lot during the pandemic all the cultural field, and even if the museum were closed, and that is the case till now in France, and we hope to reopen next month only. The people in the museum were still working inside the museum, and even if the exhibition were not open to the public, the exhibition were still set up and waiting for the public to be able to come back. So because of all these activities around the cultural field, and of course it's very, very different from the concert or from the live performance. In the museums, they put more effort on online content to be able to share what was in the museum. I think that we are also working in a new world, and not only because of the pandemic, but also because of the environment issues, because we hope that people will change a little bit the way they are doing right now. And for example, the big exhibition where you have artworks from all over the world just coming here in Paris or in another museum won't last in the next year, because I think that it costs a lot to bring all this artwork, and the digital way of seeing artworks, or to understand also the art history, can have their place in this new world. I think also, and we are working at Lucid Realities on a platform where to present new VR content dedicated to museums. So artistic content or scientific content for scientific museums, and that the curators won't move and won't travel as often as they used to. And so this kind of platform can bring the content to them, and they can discover new content. The same, I guess, for Mrs. Ham platform. It can be also a way to promote some performing art project, or to promote cultural content, and the creators from their office or only on their computer, they can see what exists. They can also download a sample and be able to test it in a virtual reality headset, and then decide to showcase it in their museum. So that's also a new way for the cultural field to understand or to promote a new kind of content that can be, of course, more easily seen by the audience. And of course, we also work for the young audience, and the youngest are very used to use interactivity, to use only their phone to discover the world. And so to create new cultural content on this kind of device can be, I think, a very good way also to give access. And because we know that the younger audience are not the easiest to bring in the museums, and so we really need to find new ways to bring the art outside of the museum, and to go to the audience and not to bring the audience to art.
네, 네, 큐레이션이라는
Yes. So you mentioned about the word curating, curation, and also looking for or discovering a new audience base. And I think that, I thought that I didn't realize that time has passed so quickly. And I think that we're having a very good discussion. So given our experience, it is important that we can promote this business and to deliver more happiness to the audience. So in that sense, we can think about the role of the government. Of course, the government funding is crucial, but I think that we can expect to have some kind of support from the government. So what can the government can do for us? I think that if you look at the artists, not only for performance but also for arts, I think that a lot of the artists have to meet the audience online, and they have to create like videos. But that takes a lot of money because for filming and also for transmission. So if the government can actually help develop and construct this type of infrastructure so that will be accessible to artists. I think that the artists can make their creations at an affordable price and they can focus more on their creations. So I think that the governments should work to develop an infrastructure, a housing, also an online concert hall or things like that that will be accessible to the artists. And the performing arts industry is very much interested in the profit sharing. But at the working level, of course, we know how to share our profits, but I think that the government should also make guidelines in terms of how to share profits in terms of the projects. So I think that you're mentioning about the developing a legal framework as well as infrastructure, because if you want to do soccer, you need a soccer field. So if you want to like perform, of course, you need like a performing stage. That's quite natural. So what about Lutz?
I think the government, in our case, can really utilize these technologies to support young urban audiences, really to help artists that don't have this kind of platforms before, give them a stage. And the beauty of digital platforms is that you can do a stream also on a cultural heritage site or a very prominent square of a city, because you don't have thousands of people, you have just an artist on a stage. So I think to give them a platform and to create awareness of art that hasn't have this chance as maybe the more established culture, I think digital platforms can help to get more access to the public. So we saw in some countries where, for instance, in Spain or also in Tbilisi in Georgia, where we saw that they provided a market square or a cultural heritage as a background for a stream, and an artist, a DJ, a singer could use that as a background for a stream, which just shows, hey, I'm here, I'm visible, I'm also part of society and part of culture, and not just in dark clubs and music venues. So I think that is something where the government can support, and also, as also Ms. Ham mentioned, we have an urgency of providing the right technology and access to technology. Not everybody, not every artist has the cameras, has the streaming technology, and I think this is something also government can think about, a sharing model, where we could, for a stream, go to a certain place, rent the infrastructure, maybe just have to pay a person that helps to set it up. So I think there would be ways of more sharing and collaborating where the government can play an important part.
네, 아까 처음에 얘기했던
Yes, so in the beginning, Yes, as we expect to see a square in a city, yes, it will be very interesting to also put up a show, on platform to showcase different cultural heritages around the world. So what about you, Chloe? What do you think?
On what the government can do, I think we have seen in France a good initiative as France Télévisions, that is a French public broadcaster, create a new channel just for cultural content, performing arts and theater, and from maybe 6 months till now, this new channel is only showcasing concert, performing art, dance, theater, or also the film exhibition, and so they try to support both the artist, of course, because the TV broadcaster send a team to shoot and they finance the captation of the spectacle. So this TV channel is both on the TV but also on the website, and I guess it will go on for a few months until all the festivals, the concerts can reopen. So that was, of course, a very good initiative, and but as Lutz told it, it's much more on famous music group or famous theater play, and it doesn't really show the diversity of the creation. So that's what we can help to do, and to also bring the artist in the digital field, and not only to film or to give a video version of a spectacle, but really to create something that is designed to be in digital, and that can bring some new kind of artist, or some artists from different arts, and that's what we are doing in virtual reality. We use people coming from the exhibition, we use people metteurs en scène from theater, we use writers, we use of course visual artists and musician, and we bring them around the table to create really something that is designed to be digital, and that can use all the features from the digital world. And I think that's the best that what the government can support, and we are very lucky because it does this. We do have some public support for this kind of creation.
네, 잘 들었습니다. 이게 온라인화 된다는 것이 단순히
Thank you. Being online or providing contents online means that we go beyond online through convergence. That's what I felt from different comments. Well, time's almost up, unfortunately. We've just had a rare chance to be with panelists from all over the world, from Germany, France, and Korea. And we've had a talk about what we've been through online. And we just discovered a new business model, which is online. And can we grow this in a sustainable way? What are obstacles? And what kind of help can we expect from the government? Well, during the short period of time, we've had a fruitful discussion, I guess. Well, it was also a pleasure for me. So thank you very much, Ms. Ham, Lutz, and Chloe. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the moderation.
Thank you.
기다려 주십시오. 유튜브 화면 넘어갔을까요? 안녕하세요. 저는 송호준입니다. 오늘 이렇게 메이킹 레모네이드 행사에 불러주셔서 너무 감사드리고 오늘은 제 작업을 잠깐 소개를 하고 어떻게 그 압축하지마 작업을 시작하게 됐는지를 보여주는 이전 작업들을 보여주고 그 다음에 바로 압축하지마 대회로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. Thank you so much for inviting me as a part of a Making Lemonade event. I'm going to talk about my previous works and then how my previous work got related to the Don't Compress Me project. So let's begin. 저는 이제 그 극한적인 기술을 가지고 어떤 이야기를 만드는 작업에 관심이 많았었습니다. I was interested in creating narratives out of extreme technologies. So this one, when you hit it with the hammer, then it says I love you. 그래서 이제 망치로 세게 치면 사랑한다라고 말해주는 작업이라든지 Uranium necklaces for the people who wants to commit suicide, for tasting the death. 죽음을 시험하기 위한 이제 우라늄 목걸이를 만든다라든지 아니면 이제 신의 모양을 한 값싼 전자 부품을 만들어서 대량 생산을 하려는 계획을 가지고 있었습니다. I want to mass produce God-shaped, really cheap LEDs so I can mass produce them. 그래서 이제 부처님 같은 경우는 한 2.5볼트부터 불이 들어오기 시작해요. You are starting to see the Buddhas lighting up when it's over 2.5 volts. 그리고 이제 제가 가장 오랫동안 했던 프로젝트는 인공위성 프로젝트인데요. Open Source Satellite Initiative project is the project that I have worked on longest time. I launched my satellite in 19th April 2013 in Kazakhstan 바이코누르. 카자흐스탄 바이코누르에서 2013년 4월 19일에 인공위성을 이제 발사를 하게 됐는데 사실 이제 인공위성 프로젝트를 하면서 제가 어떤 불확실한 거나 어떤 뭔가 영웅 서사 같은 것들을 깨부시기 위한 작업에 관심이 생기기 시작합니다. So with this satellite project, I got interested in how we can deconstruct the so-called heroisms or heroisms related narratives. 그래서 어떻게 보면 이 인공위성 작업이 이제 압축하지마 같은 작업을 하게 되는 결정적인 계기가 됐다라고 생각이 듭니다. So this Open Source Satellite Initiative project got a lot to do with my next project, which was Don't Compress Me, or project that has to do with the uncertainties, because uncertainties is all about deconstructing the greatness. 그래서 이제 불확실에 관련된 이제 작업들, 이거는 이제 반인공지능 한국어 발성 기법인데 어떻게 하면 이제 AI를 속일 수 있는 발성을 할 것인가에 대한 작업입니다. 그래서 화이트 노이즈를 넣어가지고 인공지능을 속일 수 있는 이제 발성법을 했거든요. 그리고 this is about on of everything. So I invite people to bring their electronics, and I just turned it on and off. 그러면은 이제 그걸 그냥 껐다 켰다 하게 되면은 이상한 그 오디오 비주얼 콤비네이션들을 볼 수 있어요. Then we can start to see the weird combination of audio and visual. So this also has a lot to do with the uncertainties. 그래서 이거가 이제 불확실함으로 이어져 있다라는 거예요. 그래서 이제 이거와 같은 연장선상에 있는 게 압축하지 마라고 생각을 하시면 될 것 같습니다. So Don't Compress Me is all about uncertainties and how we can move against the algorithm. 잠깐 여기서 멈춰서 보면, so I'm just to pause this video. So on the left side, 제일 왼쪽에 가만히 서 있는 거는 777kb인데 소리를 치면서 난리 치면은 제일 오른쪽 거는 1072kb인 거예요. 똑같은 시간이. So on the far left, it's only 777 kilobytes because I don't move at all. But for the far right ones, I move a lot with my voices, so it's 1072 kilobytes. 그래서 이제 어떻게 하면은 압축을 당하지 않으려고 움직여야 되냐면 최대한 랜덤하게 움직여라고 저는 말을 합니다. 그리고 갑작스러운 변화를 가져가요. So sudden changes and random movements will increase the compressed file sizes. So in order to win this competition, you have to move random and sudden. 그래서 지금 이제 우승자를 보면 끝난 줄 알고 멈춘 사람이 우승한 거예요. 제일 왼쪽 아래. So the winner of that competition was the last one because he thought it was finished. So 이제는 이제 우리가 한번 압축하지 마를 해보려고 하는데요. So now we are doing our Don't Compress Me competitions. 그래서 세 번의 그룹전하고 세 번의 개인전을 가져가면서 한번 오늘의 대회를 해보려고 합니다. So we're gonna have 3 group competitions and 3 individual competition. For 3 group competitions, we will try to learn the basics of, or let's just do 4 group competition. From the 4 group competition, we try to learn the basics and principles of Don't Compress Me competitions. Okay? So starting from not moving to craziness. 그래서 이제 4번의 그룹 컴피티션을 할 건데 아예 안 움직이는 거에서부터 많이 움직이는 것까지 해서 그 압축하지마의 원리에 대해서 같이 한번 배워보도록 하겠습니다. 제 목소리 다 들리시면 손 한번 흔들어 주세요. Wave your hand if you listen to my voice. 오케이. 다 준비됐죠? The first group competition is about not moving. 그래서 이제 이건 어떻게 보면 이제 그 컴피티션이라기보다는 안 움직이면서 얼마나 그 용량이 적어질 수 있는지를 보는 거라고 생각하시면 됩니다. So let's not move at all. 움직이지 맙시다. 3초 이게 삐삐삐 비프 3번 듣고 시작합니다. After 3 beeps, do not move. 오케이? 자, let's see the results. 오케이. 근데 이제 정섭님께서 지금 전화를 받으시느라고 움직이신 것 같아요. 처음 거는 움직이지 않는 거였습니다. So first one was not moving at all, but okay. But anyway, since most of the people didn't move, we have 702 kilobytes. Okay? Now, 이제는 다 같이 미친 듯이 한번 움직여 보는 거를 목표로 하겠습니다. But randomly and suddenly. Okay? On 3 beeps. 미치도록. 오케이, 오케이. 오케이, let's see the result. 결과를 한번 보겠습니다. 아까는 702kb였었어요. 지도록. 오. We have increased the file size to 1021 kilobytes. 오케이? 자, 이번에는 자, 모두 다 마이크를 한번 켜 주시겠습니까? Let's turn on the mics. 그래서 보이스를 더해서 얼마나 우리가 용량을 늘릴 수 있는지 한번 해봤으면 좋겠습니다. 자, with voices. 그리고 이제 지금 너무 부끄러워하시는 분들이 많은 것 같아요. 부끄러워하지 말아주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 이것은 내 존재가 중요하느냐 아니면 그 컴퓨터 알고리즘에 맞서는 내 존재를 보존하기 위한 작업이라고 생각을 하시면 될 것 같아요. This project is all about saving your existence against video algorithm. So don't be shy and do your best. Okay? 자, 이번에 저번 게 1021kb였습니다. 이번에 다 같이 소리와 unexpected movement와 랜덤한 걸로 우리가 더 용량이 많이 있을 수 있는지 한번 해보겠습니다. 준비. 고! 자, 기다리십시오. 한번 틀어보겠습니다. 제가 결과 특혜 소리 나오죠? 오! 1038. So we were able to increase the file size from the previous sessions. 자, 저번 세션보다 좀 더 이제 파일 사이즈를 더할 수 있었어요. 자, 이렇게 해서 우리는 이제 압축하지마에 대해 원리에 대해서 이제 이해를 해볼 수 있었는데, 우리 지금 시간이 조금 남아 있어요. 그래서 개인 컴피티션을 하고 일단 3명이 준비되어 계시는데, 이민주님부터 개인 컴피티션을 하고 그 다음에 시간이 남으면 다른 분들도 할 수 있는지 한번 보겠습니다. So starting from 이민주, the individual competition session will begin from now on. But since we have some time, we'll try to have more people if we have time. Okay? 민주님 준비됐습니까? 네. 그러면 비프 듣고 시작하겠습니다. After the beep. 오케이, 결과를 보도록 하겠습니다. Let's see the results. 오, 엄청난 용량의 지금 민준이네. It's 1,427 kilobytes. I think the reason why she got this great results is because she's been using the AI background techniques, like the glitchy techniques. So Maybe that's why 그 글리칭하는 그 백그라운드를 써서 아마 이렇게 용량이 많지 않았나 생각이 되는데요. 자, 김이세님 준비되셨습니까? 네. 비프 듣고 시작하겠습니다. 잠깐만 음소거 해제해 주시겠어요? 지금 이세님 오케이 됐습니까? 네, 준비하시고 비프 3번 듣고 시작하겠습니다. After the beep. 네, 네, 끝났습니다. 여기 네네 이세님 네 끝났습니다. 이세님 끝났어요. 자 리플레이 보겠습니다. 854kB 854kB 뭔가 그 국악을 하신 분이 아닌가라는 제가 추측을 잠깐 해봤습니다. I thought she was doing, she's been practicing Korean traditional music, but sadly, she was only 854kB. 자, 그리고 이제 김옥신님 준비되셨습니까? 네, 자 사운드 켜주시고요. unexpected하고 랜덤하게 움직여 주시기를 기대합니다. 자, 시작. 오케이, 네네, 됐습니다. 자, 한번 결과를 보도록 하겠습니다. 수고하셨습니다. Thank you so much. 1014kB. So 1014kB. So I think the winner of this competition is 이민주. Let's give it up for 이민주. 이민주님께 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다. But since we have some time left, 자 이민주님께는 부상을 우리가 드릴 수 있는지 한번 고민을 해보고 연락을 드릴 거고요. 지금 잠깐 시간이 남아서 한 명만 더 해보고 싶은데 한 명 혹시 더 해보실 분 손 한번 들어주시겠습니까? Whoever wants to give it a try as an individual session since we have some time. One last. Nobody? 하실 분 없으십니까? Okay, thank you so much. 참여해 주셔서 감사드리고 so Don't Compress Me project is all about how we can be exceptional or make exceptions in the era of trendy AI algorithms, because AI algorithms will definitely predict similar peoples, but if you are becoming exceptional, no one can actually predict you. 그래서 인공지능 시대에서는 뭔가 이렇게 예측당하고 대체당하는 사람이 안 되기를 바라면서 오늘의 그 Don't Compress Me 압축하지 마 컴피티션을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 앞으로도 여러분의 앞날에 압축되지 않는 삶이 있기를 바랍니다. 자, 모두 감사드리고 자, 그러면 우리 빠이빠이 하고 같이 갔으면 좋겠습니다. 여러분 수고하셨고 다 같이 손 흔들어서 빠이빠이 할게요. Let's just say goodbye. See you all soon. Thank you so much. 고맙습니다. Don't
Bye
compress.
bye. Thank you.
Bye. 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 안녕.
안녕.
네, 시작하겠습니다.
All right, shall we begin? Good morning, good afternoon. I am Sejin Seok. I am now working as the steering committee chair of Ulsan City Museum, and I've been in charge of Baeknamjun Museum before here. This is the last session of Making Lemonade, entitled Where Should We Head to? The Digital Future of Arts. Well, the title is quite big and deep, but this is the question that we need to ask ourselves in this era. We've had 5 previous sessions, and this is the 6th and last one. And first of all, I would like to thank Nabi Art Center, Goethe-Institut, and the French Culture Division of French Embassy in Korea for organizing this wonderful event. And it is a great pleasure for me to be part of prominent experts of the industry. Well, I have just mentioned the title of this session, Where Should We Go in this digital era? Well, personally, I think there's no answer. Who knows? Who knows or who can expect how the world will be shaped when the world is rapidly changing in a lightning speed? So this is, in that sense, a kind of non-concrete question. But first of all, before we do so, we need to introduce our panelists. First, we have Director No So-young of Art Center Nabi, and Mr. Lee Dae-hyung, curator, is an independent curator, and he also worked for Venice Biennale Korean Pavilion, and he has engaged in Hyundai Motors project, and Mr. Marcus Lovis, and he is now running a digitality project, theater and digitality, and Ms. Judith Gates runs Recto Verso based on virtual reality, which is a quite innovative and unique project. Well, before we kick off our discussion in depth, would you like to briefly introduce your main activities? So to Judith, let me ask you a question and also share some comments with you so that we can discuss together. Recto Verso cooperates with diverse artists, researchers, and curators to explore a new possibility of art. Diverse attempts have been observed from your community, Recto Verso. And my question is like this. You have been trying MR, VR, AR, and amongst those different projects, what kind of possibilities have you seen, have you observed from there? And what kind of impact would it make on the lives of artists and other people? And do you think it can be established as a new art genre, as a new extended genre of art? And can you please share your personal experiences with us? Once Judith starts, I think other panelists can pose further questions and give feedbacks and comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation, and I'm very happy to be here in this panel. So thank you for the invitation. Yes, for me, so I'm an artist and a researcher, and during a long time I have explored the potentiality of the virtual reality as a medium, and in links also with the art history. So I'm very interested of this potentiality of participation with the spectator, this really a relational aesthetic you have when the spectator enter in the artwork, in these immersive and interactive artworks. And so with Rectoverso, I'm very interested each year to have a thematic, a different thematic, to explore, as maybe we said, a new genre, but it's really to explore not just the virtual reality, but all the artistic emergence between the boundary, between the real, in the boundary between the real and the virtual. So each year, for example, we explore the matter, the body, or it's kind of this thematic, and to really explore all the kind of artworks explore and artists want to explore. And with Rectoverso, I've seen a lot of artists in different disciplines, in different structure, like emergent artists, recognized artists who use the virtual reality and interactive art to explore, so to go beyond the technology, to really to explore that as a really a medium. And I think it's interesting in each medium, and with technology, for example, but with the virtuality as their own properties. And with virtuality, with Rectoverso, we also explore, for example, the concept with the virtuality as the presence of the environment, or to be here, or all that. So I really think, and I've seen each year like 60 artworks with Rectoverso from our principal gallery and all other things with a student and all. And I see really an emergence of a lot of exploration in this field.
예, 그러면은
Yes, thank you very much. So later on, I hope that we will have time to talk more about the virtuality that Judith talked about. A lot of the artists are leveraging virtuality to go in between the physical and the virtual space to create something very unique. And as Judith said, what Judith said, let us discuss about that topic or theme further later on. And now I would like to call on the names of our panelists who will share with the audience about the activities they do. So first of all, Marcus Lopez. So Marcus Lopez is the artistic director for Academy for Theater and Digitality. So while working in this academy, you have actually put on a lot of performance that require a lot of like interaction with the audience. And usually this kind of interactions were done in the physical space, but you try to translate those experiences into the cyber world, the virtual world. Of course, in the digital era, a lot of transition is taking place from the physical thing, the atom, to non-physical, the beat. So as we are living in this world of transition, I think that can present challenges, but that can at the same time present more opportunities for us. So Marcus, can you please introduce to us about the projects that you're working on, and what kind of challenges that you're facing, and what kind of opportunities that you see in this new era of virtuality?
Yes, hello to you all. Thank you very much for inviting me. The Academy for Theater and Digitality is a model project of the Theater Dortmund for digital innovation, artistic research, technical education and training. So we established this academy before the pandemic situation, just for transforming processes of art into digital technologies, or keep the to close the gap between the two departments of technique and arts. And so for the last 13 months, we're just researching on how can we transform this into the digital or virtual space. So we are not as part of the theater, we are our own department in the theater of Dortmund. We are not a producing platform, we're just a research platform for the connection between art and technologies. And we just saw just step by step how theaters that were not used to operate with this digital or virtual spaces, how they stepped into the new era of exploring new spaces where mankind is meeting and where the arts have to go to. So the first step was, of course, streaming of theater products, but this was almost like a vehicle for imitating the live stage performances. And after this 12, 13 months, we just explored new ways of interacting. Then that's the main point, I think. And we think that the interaction that you have in the physical co-space has to be transformed into the digital or virtual space. So how can you feel that there is another actor or actress with you playing, singing, performing? How can you feel the reaction of the audience? What technological possibilities are there? We are just with some universities in contact just for research programs, such as wearing stuff that reacts on what you're doing. I can feel just like figuring out what is emotion tracking in virtual spaces with avatar designs. Of course, it's products of spatial sound environments we're researching on. And so we just try to explore this as a new room, a co-space to the old theater contexts, not just for imitating or for eliminating, but to accept that there is a space the arts have not explored by now.
그러면은 어떠한 뭐 다시 이거는 제가 그
So I will get back to Marcus and the other panelists with the same question. But so while doing the projects that you worked on, you know, going in and off line, in between the online and offline. So what I believe that you actually have a firm conviction and also have a conservative view that we have to really promote the physicality of the interactions. But there's, of course, a difference between how when these experiences move on to the cyber world, in the virtual world. So I believe that from our last talk that you mentioned about these things. And there are some of the challenges that people are facing. And Marcus mentioned about some of the challenges. And also there is an importance of originality and this presence, offline presence that people need to feel. And all of these elements should be preserved and maintain their identity in the virtual world. Or would they really maintain those type of identity in the virtual world? So I would like to know what Marcus thinks about that. And maybe other panelists can also add their comments about whether the virtual space has this presence element or not. So Marcus, maybe you can start.
Yeah, in some kind it has, but it's of some sort of translation. If you just put your analog attitude into the what we so call internet, so if you just have no transformation process, then there is no big chance to get new experiences with what you mean. How can we each other feel oh, I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. How can we recognize that there is some more in this space than we are in front of our gadgets? So this is a new way of thinking and a new way of exploring. And I think even the virtual rooms and even avatarization, of course, can give you more opportunities to move to a 3D environment, to meet other people, to have some sort of conferences or art experiences as it is in this streaming format like Zoom or whatever.
지금 부관장님한테 조금 제가
Yes, Director Rowe. I think I need to ask for your help while asking a question. In a contemporary art, production, distribution, and consumption have changed a lot in a digital era. So, in a nutshell, the liveliness of the arts on stage and the way we consume them in a virtual world, do you think we can reproduce and realize a kind of matrix where we can feel the same vibes and same energy of the originality of the arts in a virtual world? Well, you may have different opinions. Well, what do you think? Yes, let me address that. Well, those who started their career offline, like Marcus, and come to online world, face a typical dilemma, if I could call it that way. Online cannot provide the same experience as offline, and there is something critical missing. This is a widespread opinion, and I agree with that idea. But on the contrary, if I put it another way, if I put it this way, well, some experiences can be allowed through technology online only, which was not possible offline. That's what Nabi has been doing during for the several years. What can we get more? What kind of newness can we get from online? That was the question. Like Web 2.0. When the Web 2.0 was open, a new world got open too. And for the first time, people got the power to control the time and space in a virtual world. And time also is now based on space is also based on gigabytes units. And like that, space is expanding. And how will we and can we use that expanded space? That's a challenge. That's a homework left to us in this era. And another concept that I would like to share with you is connectivity. More precisely, enormous connectivity. Global world is based on a real-time basis. And we can enjoy the same concert all together, which is never possible offline. So, real physical space and virtual space are seeing a new world, meaning that there was something impossible in a real space. But through interaction, through interface, it becomes possible online. This is the first of its kind experience to humankind, and it will explore a tremendous scope or sphere, and this will be a new phenomenon. And also, if I could return to digital technology, well, before, when we see an artist, we thought that those people were quite special. Those people were particularly trained, and only artists could make a performance or display their artworks or creations on stage or in galleries. But in a digital world, that mythic concept has changed. Well, digital artist stands for a great variety of creators. Well, digital artist is not only limited to conventional types of arts. Those conventional artists are just a small number in a digital world and in a notion of digital artist. Like TikTok, for example, you can recall it. The young audience doesn't consume digital contents as it is. They add up their own things onto it and they distribute it and they consume it and it becomes culture. But in this digital world, blockchain technology has just appeared. As we all know, the originality, the uniqueness. People have been saying that originality cannot exist in a digital world. Like Benjamin said, did reproduction or eternal reproduction will be possible in a digital world. But that's disappearing. That notion of originality or eternal reproduction is blurred. Yes, we can reproduce in an unlimited way, but we can also keep the originality of art piece in a digital world. The ownership is little by little being established in a digital world, opening up a new world to digital art world. So, the title of our discussion is Where Should He Headed? Well, all stories are shared, but new stories are coming, like Metabus, NFT. And these are the new concepts that we need to explore further. That's my idea. Thank you.
먼저 이제 뭐 시간과 공간의 조작이 가능하다라는 말씀, 이것도 굉장히 중요한 것 같고요. 제 개인적으로는 19세기의 어떤 그 산업혁명 시대 때에 우리가 이제 공간을 조작할 수 있는 뭐 큐비즘이라고 얘기를 한다면 우리가 어떤 관점을 조작할 수가 있는 시기 토대가 마련이 됐다면 지금 21세기 와서는 우리가 시간을 조작을 하는 뭐 양자역학 개념도 나오고 요즘에 버추얼 리얼리티나 어떤 이머시브 그러한 환경적 작업도 그 안에서 다른 시간대를 섞어버리는 시간적 조작이
In a virtual reality, we can just mix up different times and spaces like Namjoon Pack. And new attempts have appeared, and I called it New Cubism. That's what we see in this era. And also, in that sense, I think this is the starting point of Judith and Marcus has the same common ground. Well, Marcus, you have some atomic elements, and those are transferred into bit units in online world. And in case of Judith, your works are not based on atom. It's not material, but it's rather immaterial. You are dealing with bits, and bits are displayed online, and those bits are becoming artworks. That's what I felt from your trials or attempts. So you deal with bits to create another bit. So immaterialism becomes another immaterialism like a video, VR, AR, and MR. And these are another type of expanded space, expanded time, and expanded work. But when we try to turn elements into bits, immaterial things, there is a certain gap that we can't do. We can't work on further, and that's the obstacle that we need to overcome. And concerning NFT, well, there is an artwork composed of eternal combination of bits, and we have to secure the originality of that artwork. And in that sense, I think NFT is a tool to give economic values to artworks, because online artworks composed of bits started from the democratization of ownership through equal access. But my personal view is that NFT is a new tool to give economic value to NFT-based artworks. In that sense, I have a question to Mr. Lee.
So in fact, as for digital, it is having a lot of impact on the art industry or art market. And since we're living in the world of capitalism, so do you believe that the online world can become free and independent completely? This is the question I'm asking you. And added to that, what are your views on the digital market as well as NFT?
예, 설명 너무 잘 들었고요.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And as for the development of markets, it's very much based on the how we can bridge the distance between the creators and the users. That was the key up until now. But if you in the traditional art market, no, the nationality was important, the skin of color was important, and at times the university, your background was also important. So it was very much mired in elitism, but things have really changed. So, but in the past, what kind of museums are located in our country, what kind of art academies are operating in our country. So all of these were very important elements, which was not only limited to Korea, but it was sort of like a worldwide phenomenon, and that had indeed like buttressed the art market. So that was the institutional logic of the past. But blockchain is giving us more opportunities for democratization. So I think it is helpful. When blockchain first emerged, it was very important to know how we can eliminate the middleman. And the key question was how we can make people with less money to go for co-ownership. And it was very important to preserve authorship as well. So blockchain was very good in making all of this possible. But the key to blockchain is decentralization. And when it comes to decentralization, we thought that it was a good value, but I think there is a paradox in blockchain, meaning that the basic instinct of mankind was not really fully understood, because scientifically and socially we talk about social engineering, but what we see nowadays, I think that the Bitcoin or the blockchain, if you see the price bubbles that we hear on the news, so I think that there are lots of cases in the past 6 months that actually showed how greedy a human can become. So I think that a democratic blockchain is still operating within the limitations of neo-technologism, and it is sort of creating a new power structure. And I keep thinking about the positive and the negative sides to the current phenomenon. But, we talk about the NFT and metaverse and its impact in the art market. I think that the metaverse or the NFT is like a new atmosphere, meaning that in the sky, meaning that it has freed us from geopolitical boundaries, but at the same time, in order to maintain that high atmosphere, a lot of energy is spent. For example, for one NFT transaction to happen, it requires an oil or fuel that a car runs for 1,000 kilometers. So there's lots of consumption of energy as well. So we really have to think about the kind of a global impact that this would have. And this is something that we have to think about and discuss. And in the end, the NFT market, I think, has some negative sides as well. One example is that just because you think it has an economic value, a lot of cultural institutions are entering this market. But you really have to think about the value that you want to transmit to the future generation. I think it should go beyond something that is economic. We have to think about the social responsibility, environmental, and cultural responsibility as well. So I believe that these type of topics warrant discussion. Yes, so we are living in the 21st digital era, and there is a diversity of aesthetic value that are becoming more diversified, more horizontal, and all of these aesthetic value that we considered as important in the past were very much defined by the limited few. There are lots of it was led by a limited group of experts, and this limited group of experts were sort of colluded with some other actors as well. So, of course, you mentioned about the negative aspects, but I think the NFT has positive sides that we can have a diversity of aesthetic values, and the average users can leverage these aesthetic values to conduct independent assessment, independent evaluation. And I believe that Director No also mentioned about this before. So we are now living in this era, and yet from a commercial perspective, NFT can be seen as negatively seen as a tool for commercialization. So we have Judith and Marcus here with us. So we're living in this new digital era, and we're talking about new extended genre, whether it's a VR, AR, or online performance. So we all have all of these elements, but it is also, there are lots of attempts that are being made to actually make all of these projects being widely shared with a wider audience. So I would like to ask a question to Marcus and Judith. So you are working on several projects and you're creating a lot of artistic creations. So in order to share these artistic creations with the audience, I believe that we need to actually focus on the diversity of aesthetic values when you implement new projects, and you also have to look towards the audience response, the visitors' response. I believe that the new creations will show different audience response compared to the past. So because you're doing a lot of VR and new projects. So how are these projects being responded and accepted by the audience? The question also goes to the performing area as well for Marcus. So either Marcus or Judith, you can take the floor.
네, 주디스 선생님,
Maybe Judith, can you speak first? Judith?
Okay. Yes. Oh yes, no. If indeed, for me, we talk about new technologies, and for me as an artist, I really like to see what's new happen, and yes, technology go very fast. We see a lot of things, but for me is really each time as a medium, as matter, as like like colors, like I can see the effect, like new effects. And as I said, I really worked about the aesthetic rationale with the audience and the public, and when a person, and to really imagine how the spectator will come and enter in contact with the artwork before he enter in the exhibition place, and when he is in exhibition place, and when he sees the artworks, and when he enter inside the artworks. So I made a PhD about this question of presence, illusion, and also the question of wonder, because I try with this new art form and this technology to re-question our reality, and in this with this concept of wonder, to really do experiences where the spectator receives the reality. And for me, the medium of virtuality was and is very interesting for me, because you are totally immersed in a new world, and like that you can play with illusion, and you can play and do and after that, when the spectator is outside the experience, it could see the reality in another side. So all this reflection is about my artistic side, and as a curator and scenographer, and for the Rectoverso, I really question also the artworks, but now the exhibition place also. And this year, so all this question of offline and online, so with Rectoverso was also a lot of interrogation in this question. And the thematic was about virtual exhibition, real exhibition, and online art. And during our 3-day, we had, and it's the end also today, but we had a lot of speaker and exhibitor who interrogate this. And I think that for me, last year we had to adapt, and I made artworks, and after I questioned the exhibition place, so how the spectator come in the real exhibition place to see immersive and interactive artwork and enter in each artworks, like a choreography for the spectator inside that, because you have also the gesture like in performer with a performance. But no, I really questioned, because last year we made a virtual gallery in 1 month to try to present, not to leave the artwork, but to present the artwork in a virtual space. But the virtual space was the copy of all I have imagined of the real scenography, and to present immersive and interactive artworks, but just to see the purpose of the artist. And this year I have seen that I would like to interrogate the reverse with Rectoverso. And we launched a call for project about online art, and art you can just see in the virtual space, and art who use the virtual as a new medium in terms of matter or space. And it's really interesting to see how the platforms now the artists use for diffuse their art, also for create at our time.
그 새로운 경험이라는 거를 말씀하셨고요.
Yes, so you mentioned about the new experience, and also to translate the reality into a virtual space. So how should we perceive the reality? As what? I think that this is a very important questions for us, for digital natives. I think the answer also may be different for both of us, both groups. But I think that how we embrace the situation, how we enjoy this situation is also a very important question. And how will these type of new experiences add value in the art market can also lead us to think about another question. So I believe that there were a lot of interesting talks. So maybe we can start asking each other questions. And I would like to also ask one question to Marcus. When you were doing your project, how did you find the audience response? Do you believe that the visitors, when they actually experience something new, did they respond or react differently or similarly? I would like to know how your experience was. Because we are exploring new possibilities and new approaches and new methods. How are they being accepted by the public and especially also the German visitors or German public?
Yeah, it's a quite interesting thing that the audience was just very curious for new technologies on stage after just playing out 100 years of implement film or video on theater moments in the even in the German-speaking theater. They were just very curious to explore new things, to get used to virtual reality glasses, or to see robots dancing with dancers, and just to have new ways of interacting with the stage. And now in the virtual and digital rooms, they are quite used to it. So everything has a change into digital space, into the internet, and of course science is there, and economics are there, and politics are there, and the social networking is there. And they were quite curious to see how performing arts could find their way to them. And we had, of course, to open some doors just to make it comfortable, so that they can see, oh, here's our theater, here is some sort of opening door, here is a person I can speak to, and here is the program I can watch and I can participate, or the experiments I can be part of. But they are in the German speaking theater very, very interested. And of course, we had to learn that not everything that we put into the net is spread out worldwide. So we had to communicate with our local partners. And this is for the theaters very important, just to keep the community together at the place that they are. So in Germany, of course, you know, we have 136 theaters on this small spaces, opera houses, dancing companies, whatever. It is a huge amount. And we have to keep the contact to the local audience and then spread it out to what is a new experiment that you can just play out furthermore. It's very interesting. They're not anxious. They're just open-minded.
네, 제가 제 의견을 참고로 말씀을 드리면, 지금 사회자가 많은 이야기를.
Well, let me express my opinion too. I know that as a moderator, I have to facilitate the discussion between panelists, but I would like to add up my comment too. Well, expanded experiences or multi-senses, as Director Rowe mentioned during her talk, these days, to art, we provide values and we try to enjoy values through art, and that's quite a democratized attitude of the audience. Well, in other words, expanded experiences are swaying from reality to virtuality and vice versa. and in the middle ground that urges us to have more imagination. Well, in the past, we tried to interpret the object, but these days we have more subjective and active imagination or imaginary approach as an audience. So that's why we have not history, then histories, and not only a trend, but micro trends. And it represents a great array of different senses and different interpretations versus the same art. Well, it's true that the subject is very big. So, well, Director Rowe, you've mentioned different ways of production, distribution, and enjoyment of the arts in this era. So could you please elaborate on that point? The relationships between art and market, oh, that's a big topic. Yes, apart from the relationship with the market, I would like to ask a question of public value of art or democracy of art. What is being public? Of course, we can advocate the public value. Then what is public art? What's the value that public art can give? Is that the art that doesn't sell in the market? Or is that the art that public institutions or government support? Well, I think other people could comment on this, but it makes me think of many things when I hear the democratization or democracy of art. Well, democracy means that we need to give more access to the bigger audience, but it makes me think of many things at the same time. And concerning NFT, Mr. Lee commented on the environmental value. Yes, it's true. In Ethereum, for example, when they have a meeting, it takes lots of energies. But like other technological issues, people eventually find an answer to it or find a solution to it. So we do not use Ethereum only nowadays, and Ethereum is used too. So technological issues can be eventually solved through technology, but NFT, metaverse, and other new types of digital arts in this realm, an interesting issue that we have these days is the aesthetics. But can we really talk about aesthetics in this era when we have NFT, Ethereum, and all technologies? Are there still aesthetics in our world? I'd like to hear your answers.
계속 지금 가상, 현실
Yes, we're talking about virtuality, reality, new experience, and new experience and extended experience. So all of these have occurred due to technology. But unlike in the past, the art from the artistic and aesthetic perspective, I mean, if you think before the 20th century, if we ask the question, where does art come from? We would say it comes from the artwork. But with the 21st century and the arrival of Duchamp, where is art created? It comes from artists and the artwork. And with the Fluxus movement, there is the audience that is intervened. So art comes from the artwork, and also the artist, and also the interaction with the audience. But in the 21st century, where does the art come from? Where does the art emerge? There's art and artists as well as audience that participate, but there is also participation of the technology. So virtual reality is an online environment or online technology, and it is now the technologies that is coming in. So it can also be AI, and it goes the same for virtual environment. So if we are to define art from an aesthetic perspective, it's not about the only aesthetics we're talking about. There is also a technological element that should be considered when we talk about aesthetics. So there is the technological evolution and technological expansion that we're witnessing. And in this era, we are faced with another type of challenges. So Marcus and Judith are involved with many different interesting projects, but we are currently experiencing a rapid acceleration of technological development, which is having an impact on the acceleration of social changes. And society is becoming increasingly complex. And we really have to think about whether us as mankind is quick enough and swift enough to respond to this acceleration. And can artists also respond well to these changes in a fast manner? I don't think so. I think that there's also an important question. Will mankind be dependent on technology, or are we going to walk in tandem with technology? So is the future going to be a utopia or dystopia for us? I think there are lots of questions that can come about. I think that I'm talking too much. I think that Mr. Lee also raised his hand before, so why don't we give him the floor?
굉장히 재미있는 현상이긴 한데.
Well, that's an interesting phenomenon. We have metaverse and blockchain-based NFT, and I have seen some particularities of the artworks sold on those platforms, and I see it as technology. Well, conventionally or traditionally, what we have seen through conventional art history, well, I think that we are making back steps. Well, there's game, there's well, those trials have been already tried to several decades ago. And at first, I've been questioning why. Well, digital native generations who are really familiar with cyber games and comics and cartoons, they are so used to copy and paste art pieces. And with some little changes, they consider it as an original art piece, and those original art pieces being sold on NFT platform. But before, those art pieces were not considered as the original one. Then what will happen in metaverse platform? So we cannot tell. And secondly, context may dominate contents in technological environment. Well, when a art piece is sold, then a little bit of movement or actions can be added up onto that original metaverse art piece, and that little add up will make the new art piece into one original one again. Well, it is too early for us to talk about the aesthetics of metaverse or NFT-based art pieces. I don't think the starting point has not begun yet because major art players have not entered into this online world because they are busy with offline world and they have just begun to come into this world. And I am very curious to know what will happen when major actors will be in this virtual world. As you just mentioned, one of the phenomena, recent phenomena that we see is that the value certifications by curators, art journalists, well, art valuation was done by conventional art players like curators and critics, and it was in a Western system. But these days, certificates are given by the audience, or evaluation system is established by the players who are present in virtual world, and this is a new approach, like Banksy, Muyang, Stephen Harrington, and these artists can belong to a new group of players in this world. Will it be lasting or will this be a transitional period? We have to wait and see. And between these two different worlds, there are some artists who come and go from one world to another and back and forth. The artist evaluated by conventional players will do his or her exhibition at Biennale, for example, and that artist will come into a virtual world and be famed and accoladed by the audience in a digital world. So this could be a fusion or conversion, like you have just said, that memes can be reproduced or images of the memes. Well, this is already happening, and memes can also be original in that sense. Well, what kind of changes will we see? And we need to wait and see.
테크노폴리틱이 여전히 작동한다는
So
얘기를
I said that technopolitic is still activated. What I meant by that is that it seems like everything started out very democratically, but everything depends on who the members are. As for Beeple or Banksy, you can say that they have become a very well known, but if you have to think about who is the next target, then depending on who the members will evaluate that target, because it will be based on the information that the members have. So conventionally, in the conventional art market, the blockchain technology was emerged to actually get rid of that monopoly of the conventional market. But we have to think about the basic human instinct and the human greed. So, for example, we don't know whether Christie is behind or whether there is some other investor that's behind the initiative. So I think that the size of the bubble depends who are behind. So how are we going to be careful about all of this is also another question to discuss. So of course, there's one side to that, but for everything, all the time, when there is a new technology, there can be ups and downs. But I think that when there's a new technology, there are often cases when the technologies are abused. So I think that these technologies will last for long. They will not just disappear quickly, because I'm not just talking about artworks, but when it comes to blockchain or decentralization, but with digitalization, there is an unlimited copy, and people are actually losing their self-ego, meaning that, of course, we have become all shattered as people, and we are losing the opportunity to find our own identity. I think that people are becoming very much fragmented. But the concept of ownership, I did this, I did that, this belongs to me, I like buying this, and this is who I am. All these notions or concepts will help revive help us revive our lost identity or lost ego. So I think that these type of technologies will persist and will remain for long.
예술 작품의 소유의 본능은
The instinct to own art piece has a long history since the beginning of the humankind's stories. The desire to own objects has always been with the history of mankind. But if we can go further, then contemporary art has been financialized since the 80s. And it has been considered and used as a means to increase financial assets like securities and stocks, and technology is used, and capital power is engaged. Of course, this is a different story, but technology itself belongs to capital, and if it is used as a tool to increase capital assets, and from that moment, negative effects will arise in the society. And yes, this is another different story, because in an economic system, there are many legal regulations like internal transaction or scheme transactions or monopoly are legally banned. But art investment has a 30 years of history, which is relatively short, so everything is possible. Well, the artist can increase the price of art pieces by himself or herself, and the internal manipulation and price manipulation is also possible. And if the technology is used, including NFT, in that with a specific purpose, well, if an art piece is sold for the price of over 500 million Korean won, and it is skimmed, I am sure, I am certain about it. Well, this session touches upon a very broad subject, and that's why our discussion has been fragmented a bit, but I am told that the time's up by the organizers. But anyways, when starting this session, my personal thought is that the art is a realm where we only ask questions. We do not have answers to that. Science finds answers, but we are destined to pose questions. So that's why from the starting of this seminar, my my mission was to confuse the audience with various questions. Yes, we've had diverse talks, but to give you a conclusion, between reality and virtuality, digital technology or digital media will change our aesthetics and the way of creation of creators. And already, art is engaged with artist technology and different medias and new trials. So, will it be possible for humans not to belong to technology, nor to capital assets? Or will we be able to find a way to coexist with technology? This is the last question that I would like to suggest to all of us to think of, to be headed to a better direction. Art should keep asking these questions. That's the role given to us, I think. Yes, time's really up. But if you have an opinion that you would like to absolutely share with us, all discussants, please. So before we wrap up, please, if you have any final comments. Yes, let me be brief.
디지털 테크놀로지는 경계선을
I believe that digital technology has given hope that we can dismantle the boundaries. But I think that everything actually has boundaries. Every new thing actually creates boundaries. They are bound to create boundaries. So I think that the industry should think about, and we also have to think about the ethical issues and the environmental issues that are involved.
혹시 마지막으로 얘기하고 싶은
Anyone else would like to give wrap up comments? If you want to get the tiger, you have to get into the tiger's cave. So you have to know the technology to be able to master it. What about Marcus or Judith? Any wrap-up comments before we close?
Yeah, I'm totally your opinion that we have to ask more questions than before. We are now in all this faced with equal task of investigation, numerous new connections between digital and analog worlds, and digitality phenomenically, socially, physically, technically, and artistically. So how does theater, does art react to these changes? Which are the narrative patterns? What is experimental setup? What is technological invention? What do the professionals know? What does the audience know? What tools can and must be developed? Which professional fields of the performing arts are we in? All these questions have to be asked and have to be experienced with the audience together.
And yes, and no, for me, maybe in regard to the creation, we speak a lot about new technology, and maybe we can also speak about hybridization between new technology and all the matter we can have for create. And I wonder if also we have artworks who really go in several media, in several things, and you can have intelligence artificial with painting, and I like to see that, and I really believe there is all this emergence and all this effervescence in the experimentation also is very important, and in this complementary with the low tech and the high tech, and all this question also, all this environment evolves now, and I really think this period about the virtual interrogate also what is the artwork in these all spaces, but maybe we can really explore all that to create.
네, 감사합니다. 저희가
Thank you very much. I believe that we have passed our time. So thank you very much, everyone, for your input. And as I said earlier on, of course, these kind of discussions should continue in the future as well. So I hope that in the future, we will have a chance to have a face-to-face meeting rather than a virtual meeting so that we can have more profound exchanges. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for invitation.
Thank you.